I will never forget that night. The night my entire world shattered in front of me. What was supposed to be a romantic dinner with my wife turned into a nightmare I could have never imagined. We were at an upscale restaurant, sitting at a table near the window. Rachel, my wife, sat across from me, her fingers nervously playing with the napkin. Something was off. Her expression carried a guilt I couldn't quite place, but deep down, I knew. I just didn't want to accept it. And then, it happened. A tall, arrogant man strolled up to our table like he owned the place. He didn't even acknowledge me as he grabbed Rachel's hand and smirked. "Why are you hesitating? I am far better than your loser husband. First, we'll dance, and then I'll show you what I can really do." I froze. Not because of fear, because of sheer disbelief. This man, Jackson Carter, Rachel's boss, had just humiliated me in front of my wife, in front of a full restaurant. And worst of all, Rachel didn't pull her hand away. At that moment, something snapped inside me. My instincts took over. I stood up, moved fast, and before he could react, boom! I twisted his wrist with a calculated, effortless combat move, and the loud crunch echoed through the restaurant. "Ah, my hand!" Jackson screamed in agony. His face contorted in pain, his wrist bent at an unnatural angle. Then his knees buckled and he collapsed onto the floor, clutching his broken hand. I loomed over him, staring him dead in the eyes. "You wanted to show her something? Well, congratulations. Now, let me show you what a real man does to arrogant bastards like you." The entire restaurant fell into stunned silence. Waiters froze. Diners watched in disbelief. A man who thought he was invincible was now lying helpless on the ground. And then, Rachel screamed at me, "Are you crazy? What the hell did you just do?" I turned to her, my blood boiling. I was done playing the fool. This wasn't just a betrayal anymore. This was war. As I stood over Jackson, watching him writhe in pain, my mind suddenly drifted back to how Rachel and I got here. How did we go from a couple madly in love to this? I never imagined that the woman I once cherished more than my own life would one day betray me like this. I met Rachel 6 years ago at a coffee shop in downtown Chicago. It was one of those cliché moments you only see in movies. She spilled her coffee on me. I was sitting near the counter, focused on my laptop, when suddenly a steaming cup of caramel macchiato landed on my lap. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," Rachel gasped, reaching for napkins. I looked up, half annoyed, half amused, and that's when I saw her big brown eyes full of embarrassment and nervous laughter. "It's okay," I said, chuckling as I grabbed a napkin. She kept apologizing, her face flushed red, and I couldn't help but smile. That moment changed everything. Rachel was smart, funny, and incredibly charming. We talked for hours that day, completely forgetting about our schedules. One date turned into another. Within months, I was head over heels in love. I still remember the night I told her about my job. At the time, I was working in private security, handling high-profile cases, and traveling frequently. She found it exciting. "Wow, so you're like a real-life James Bond?" she teased. "Not exactly," I smirked. "I don't drink martinis, and I don't work for the Queen." She laughed, and I loved the way she made even the toughest days feel lighter. 2 years later, I proposed. It was under the northern lights in Iceland, something she had always dreamed of. Rachel said yes, without hesitation. For years, our life was perfect. We had a beautiful house, a comfortable life, and memories that felt straight out of a fairy tale. She supported me through everything: my late nights, my missions, and my long trips. And I trusted her completely. Or at least, I thought I did. When things started changing, looking back, the red flags were always there. But love blinds you. Rachel's job at Jackson Carter's law firm had started demanding more of her time. She began working late, dressing differently, and hiding her phone. "It's just work, babe. You're overthinking," she'd say when I asked. And like a fool, I believed her. But now, standing in this restaurant, watching Jackson groan in pain on the floor while Rachel defended him, I realized something chilling. The woman I had loved with every fiber of my being had already betrayed me long before tonight. This wasn't an accident. It was a choice. The tension in the restaurant was suffocating. Jackson groaned on the floor, clutching his shattered hand, his face contorted in pain. All eyes were on us. But the person whose reaction mattered the most, Rachel, instead of standing beside me, instead of realizing how deeply she had betrayed me, she was defending him. "Are you out of your mind? What the hell did you just do, Nathan?" Rachel screamed, stepping toward Jackson, concern plastered all over her face. I didn't respond. I just stared at her. Not because I was lost for words, but because in that moment, I saw her for what she truly was: a liar, a betrayer, a woman who had already replaced me in her heart. My hands clenched into fists, but not out of anger, out of realization. This woman, the one I had spent 6 years loving, protecting, and sacrificing for, was standing there worried about the man who just humiliated me. Jackson's screams had now turned into gritted groans. His pride was more shattered than his wrist. He tried to push himself up, but as soon as he put weight on his broken hand, he collapsed again with a strangled yelp. "I swear to God you're going to regret this," Jackson spat, eyes burning with hatred. "You don't know who you just messed with." I leaned down, lowering my voice so only he could hear. "No, Jackson, you don't know who you just messed with." His pupils dilated in fear. For the first time, he realized I wasn't just some ordinary husband. Rachel turned to me, still furious. "Apologize. Right now," I scoffed. "You want me to apologize?" "Yes," she shouted. "He could sue you for this." We could lose everything. That's when it hit me. She wasn't worried about me. She wasn't even worried about him. She was worried about herself. Rachel wasn't panicking because Jackson was hurt. She was panicking because if Jackson turned against her, her entire comfortable world would come crashing down. My stomach turned. I'd been so blind. I took a deep breath, my voice calm and cutting. "Rachel, answer me one question." She hesitated. "What?" I looked her dead in the eyes. "Have you already slept with him?" Rachel's face went pale. Her lips parted slightly, but she didn't say anything. That's all the answer I needed. I took one step back, nodding slowly. "I see. That's all I needed to know." Rachel's eyes widened. "Nathan, wait! It's not what you think." "No, Rachel." My voice was cold now. "It's exactly what I think." Jackson let out a strained laugh from the floor. "See? You were worried for nothing, baby. He's just another insecure husband who can't handle the truth." And that's when I snapped. I grabbed Jackson by his collar, yanking him up slightly. His broken wrist twisted painfully, making him yelp in agony. "If you call her baby again, I will break something else." His breath hitched. He knew I wasn't bluffing. I let go. making him drop back to the floor like a sack of garbage. Then, without sparing Rachel another glance, I turned to leave. "Nathan, where are you going?" Rachel cried. I stopped at the door. "You'll find out soon enough." And with that, I walked out of the restaurant. This wasn't over. This was just the beginning of my revenge. I walked out of that restaurant with rage burning inside me, but it was a controlled rage. This wasn't going to be a mindless act of revenge. It was going to be strategic, calculated, and utterly destructive. Rachel and Jackson thought they had humiliated me. They had no idea who they were dealing with. As I stepped into my car, I pulled out my phone and made a call. "It's me," I said, my voice steady. "I need every file on Jackson Carter. Bank accounts, investments, lawsuits, everything. And I need it now." The person on the other end chuckled. "I was wondering when you'd call." "Make it quick," I said. "The bastard thinks he's untouchable. Let's prove him wrong." I hung up and gripped the steering wheel, my mind spinning with plans. Step 1. Destroy Jackson Carter's career. But just as I was about to drive off, my phone buzzed. Rachel. I ignored it. It buzzed again and again. Then a text popped up. Rachel. "Nathan, please come back home. We need to talk. I can explain everything." I scoffed. Too little. Too late. I was about to block her number when another text popped up. This time from an unknown number. Unknown. "Mr. Carter says you've made a grave mistake. You still have time to fix this. Be smart." I smirked. "So Jackson wants to play dirty?" "Good. So do I." Later. That night, a twist. They never saw. Coming by the time I got home, the real game had already begun. I had pulled every piece of dirt on Jackson within hours. His shady business dealings, lawsuits, tax fraud, hidden affairs, everything. And in the morning, every single detail would be on the front page of the news. He had no idea his entire empire was about to crumble. But there was one thing I didn't expect. Rachel was already at my house, waiting. As soon as I stepped inside, she rushed toward me, eyes red from crying. "Nathan, please, just hear me out," she pleaded. I stared at her, my expression unreadable. "You've got 1 minute." Rachel took a deep breath, her voice trembling. "I never slept with him," she blurted out. I raised an eyebrow. "Lie to me again, and this conversation ends now." Her bottom lip quivered. "Okay, I was going to. But I didn't. He pressured me, manipulated me. He made me feel like you didn't love me anymore." "Nathan..." I chuckled darkly. "Oh, so this is my fault now?" "No, I made a mistake, okay? But I love you. I never stopped loving you." I leaned in closer. "You love me?" "That's funny, Rachel. You sure didn't look like a woman in love when you were holding his hand in that restaurant." She flinched. I took a deep breath and stepped back. "Listen carefully, Rachel. I don't care about your excuses. You made your choice. And now, you're going to live with it." Her eyes widened. "What do you mean?" I smirked. "Turn on the news tomorrow morning. You'll find out." And with that, I walked upstairs, leaving her stunned and speechless. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing non-stop. I checked the screen, dozens of missed calls and messages. Unknown number. What the hell did you do? Rachel. Nathan, Jackson is freaking out. Please talk to me. Jackson Carter. You son of a bee. I'll destroy you. I smirked as I turned on the news. Breaking news. Prominent attorney Jackson Carter accused of fraud, illegal dealings, and multiple lawsuits hidden from the public. Carter's firm under investigation after shocking financial discrepancies were exposed this morning. Clients and investors are withdrawing funds, stocks plummeting, legal empire in shambles. I leaned back in my chair, sipping my coffee. Perfect. Jackson thought he was untouchable. Now, he was the one being hunted. The man who mocked me, who thought he could take my wife without consequences, was watching his life crumble in real time. Rachel, Nathan, I need to see you. Please, just one chance. I sighed. Part of me wanted to ignore her. But another part, I wanted her to see just how badly she had screwed up. Later, that evening, a twist. She never expected I agreed to meet Rachel at our house. The moment I walked in, she rushed toward me, her eyes full of panic. Nathan, please tell me you didn't do this. I tilted my head. Do what? Jackson is ruined. His firm is falling apart. Everyone is turning against him. I chuckled. And that's my problem. How? Rachel's hands trembled. You planned this, didn't you? I didn't answer. I just stared at her. Her face paled. Oh my God, you did. I took a slow step closer. You chose him over me? Rachel? So, tell me, was it worth it? Tears welled up in her eyes. I never meant. Save it, I cut her off. You betrayed me, Rachel. And now? You're stuck with the man whose life is in ruins. She shook her head violently. No, Nathan. I love you. Please, we can fix this. I let out a cold laugh. Fix this? Rachel, the moment you let another man hold your hand and insult me in public, you killed everything between us. Her breath hitched. Please, I'll do anything. And then the real twist hit her like a freight train. I reached into my pocket and pulled out divorce papers. Rachel's face went blank. Sign them, I said, my voice firm. She staggered backward and, No. Nathan, please, don't do this. We can fix us. You should have thought about that before you threw everything away. Tears streamed down her face. She fell to her knees, clutching my shirt. Please, I don't want to lose you. I gently pried her hands off me. Rachel, you lost me the moment you chose him. She sobbed uncontrollably. But I felt nothing. I placed the papers on the table. Sign them by tomorrow, or I'll make sure you lose everything, too. Then, without looking back, I walked away. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about freedom. The next morning, I arrived at my lawyer's office to finalize the divorce. Rachel had 24 hours to sign the papers. But before I could even take my seat, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. You think this is over? I smirked. Jackson. Me. It's already over. Enjoy your bankruptcy. Jackson Carter. Meet me. 1 hour. Same restaurant. I sighed. The bastard had one last trick up his sleeve. Fine. Let's finish this. 1 hour later, a dangerous game begins. I walked into the same restaurant where everything had gone down just days ago. And there he was, Jackson Carter. He looked like hell. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot, and his right hand was now in a cast. The once arrogant man was now a wreck. I took a seat across from him. You wanted to talk? Jackson exhaled sharply. Call it off. I leaned back in my chair. Call what off? His nostrils flared. You know exactly what I mean, Nathan. The lawsuits, the investigations, the bankruptcy. I know you're behind it. I just smirked. And? Jackson's fingers twitched. I can fix this. I have connections. We can make a deal. I laughed. A deal? You had no problem disrespecting me in front of my wife, and now you want a deal? His jaw clenched. I was wrong, okay? But you don't know what you're getting into. I'm not the only one who's going down. That caught my attention. What do you mean? Jackson hesitated, then leaned forward. You think I run my own firm? You think I made all this money legally? I stayed silent. His lips curled into a bitter smile. You're messing with the wrong people, Nathan. People who make problems disappear. Now that was interesting. Jackson wasn't just a cheating scumbag. He was a pawn in something much bigger. I gave him a blank stare. So what? You expect me to be scared? Jackson's eyes darkened. I expect you to be smart. He slid an envelope across the table. I opened it. Inside was a check for $250,000. Jackson leaned back. Walk away now, drop the lawsuits, and this money's yours. I chuckled. You really think you can buy me off? Jackson's smirk returned. You're broke without Rachel, aren't you? You were always the quiet, disciplined guy while she handled the finances. You might have taken me down, but now you have nothing. I picked up the check, examined it for a second, then tore it in half. Jackson's face twisted in rage. You idiot! I stood up and leaned in close. You're finished, Jackson, and soon your connections will come for you too. You're nothing but a liability now. I turned to leave, but he wasn't done. Nathan, you walk out of here and you'll regret it. I glanced back. The only regret I have is ever letting you breathe near my wife. Then I left. Jackson was done, but there was one last loose end to tie up. Back home, Rachel's final attempt. When I got home, Rachel was sitting on the couch. The divorce papers were in front of her. She was crying. But this time, it wasn't manipulative tears. It was real. I exhaled. Did you sign them? Rachel wiped her eyes. No, I clenched my jaw. Rachel, don't make this harder than it needs to be. She shook her head violently. Nathan, I can't lose you. I don't care about Jackson. I don't care about anything else. I was stupid. I was weak, but I love you. Please, just give me a chance. I stared at her. You had a chance, Rachel. You had 6 years of chances. She grabbed my hand. I'll do anything. Please don't throw everything away. I looked down at her fingers gripping mine. For the first time since this all started, I hesitated. But then my phone rang. I picked it up. A private number. I answered. Hello? A deep voice responded. Nathan, we need to talk. Now. I frowned. Who is this? A short pause. Then, someone who knows why Jackson was really scared of you? My heart stopped. Rachel looked up at me, confused. Who is it? I met her gaze. I don't know, but I'm about to find out. This wasn't over. Not yet. I walked out onto the balcony, gripping my phone tightly. Who are you? I asked, my voice firm. The man on the other end chuckled. You're asking the wrong question, Nathan. You should be asking, who was Jackson really working for? A chill ran down my spine. I don't play games. Say what you have to say. The voice became serious. Jackson was never the mastermind. He was just a middleman. He worked for people far more dangerous than you can imagine. I stayed silent, my mind racing. You think you destroyed him? The man continued. You only removed a pawn from the board. The real players are still watching. And now, they know your name. I clenched my jaw. Let them watch. A low chuckle. Brave. But bravery won't save you from what's coming. Then, the line went dead. I stood there, gripping my phone, processing what had just happened. This wasn't just about Rachel's betrayal anymore. This wasn't just about ruining Jackson. I had stumbled into something much bigger. And now, I wasn't the hunter anymore. I was the target. Back inside, Rachel's final plea. I walked back into the house. Rachel was still sitting there, eyes swollen from crying. She looked up at me, hope flickering in her expression. Who was that? She asked softly. I exhaled, rubbing my temples. No one you need to worry about. She hesitated. Nathan, please don't do this. I shook my head. Rachel, I don't have time for this. Sign the papers. Tears spilled down her face. Please, Nathan. I love you. I'll do anything to fix this. I scoffed. You'll do anything? Funny. You didn't think about that when you were holding his hand. She flinched as if I had slapped her. I softened just a little. I don't hate you, Rachel. I just don't trust you anymore. She swallowed hard, then looked at the papers. Her hands trembled as she picked up the pen. And then, she signed. She let out a shaky breath and looked up at me. Is this really it? I nodded. Yeah, it is. She sobbed into her hands, but I didn't feel bad anymore. This was her choice, and now it was time for me to make mine. I grabbed my keys and walked toward the door. Where are you going? She asked weakly. I looked over my shoulder. To end this once and for all. Then I walked out. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about finishing the war I accidentally started. As I walked out of the house, a new purpose burned inside me. Rachel was out of my life. Jackson was ruined, but the real fight had only just begun. Jackson's powerful connections thought they could scare me off. Big mistake. I got into my car, pulled out my phone, and made one last call. It's time, I said. Activate the plan. The voice on the other end didn't hesitate. Understood. You want them buried? I smirked. Not yet. First, I want them to feel what it's like to lose everything. I hung up. Now, it was my turn to make them suffer. Jackson's biggest weakness wasn't his arrogance. It was his greed. Through my contacts in high-level security and financial forensics, I had already dug deep into his network. And guess what? His connections were laundering money. The moment I exposed those financial irregularities to the right agencies, their accounts were frozen within hours. Millions of dollars. Gone. By the time Jackson's powerful friends realized what was happening, it was already too late. I could almost hear the panic in their voices as they found out their money was untouchable. Without money, they were powerless. And I wasn't done yet. These guys thrived in the shadows. They were businessmen, lawyers, politicians, all corrupt, all untouchable. Until now. I sent every dirty secret I found, financial fraud, illegal business deals, offshore accounts, to journalists, government officials, and law enforcement. One by one, their names started appearing in breaking news headlines. High-profile attorney and his associates under federal investigation. Secret documents expose major money laundering ring. Sources confirm FBI is now involved in high-level corruption case. They were now on every government watch list possible. They weren't just scared, they were hunted. And just like that, their world started falling apart. I knew it wouldn't be long before one of them tried to fight back. And I was ready. Late that night, I received an anonymous message. Unknown. You should have taken the money, Nathan. I smirked and replied. Me. You should have never messed with my life. Then I attached one last file, a video, a hidden recording of Jackson admitting everything. Me. This goes public in 24 hours unless you disappear. And just like that, the game was over. The final blow. Jackson's fate. The next morning, Jackson was gone. Vanished. His house was empty, his office shut down. Some said he fled the country. Others said his own friends took him out to protect their secrets. Honestly, I didn't care. He was out of my life for good. And Rachel? She tried calling me again. I didn't answer. She was nothing but a memory now. 1 month later, a new beginning. Standing on my new balcony, looking over the city, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. I had won. Not just against Jackson, Rachel, or his corrupt network, but against the past that tried to break me. And now? It was time to move forward. The war was over, and I was free.